Great.
George Kilpatrick, In Space for the Nation. We're pleased to be joined by Syracuse Mayor Ben Walsh. And Mayor Walsh, thank you for joining us.
George, good to be back with you.
All right, so I want to talk about the city and what's going on with the city and layoffs, money, and Columbus Day and all of that. But what are you thinking about right now with the state of our presidential elections and not being certain at the time of this conversation who the next president is? What are your thoughts about all this?
Yeah, I'm feeling a little anxious, but also excited. My feeling on election day, I just felt great about this country. I felt like, we saw democracy in action through early voting, through absentee voting, right up until election day. I thought that the the level of engagement by people in this country is something that's really inspiring and exciting. And so I've tried to carry that with me beyond election day. But given what's at stake, given how divided our country is, which is it has been shown to be certainly reinforced through this presidential race, there's certainly anxiety there as well.
Do you think that there is any hope of, and I've been talking to a number of my guests on the show today about what they think should be done, or can the next president do anything about it, or are we now all in our various different camps and there really isn't a way to be president of the United States?
So, I wish I knew the answer, George, but I do have a few thoughts. I still believe that the majority of people prefer for their leaders or their public servants to be inclusive, to be willing and able to work with different parties. Um, so, but I think that we are all human, and certain people and bring out different things in us. And when you have people that play on your fears and your anxieties, that's what comes out. But when you have people that again focus on what we have in common, it can help. I also think, and this is the area where you're the expert, I'm not, but but media, I'm not suggesting that we blame media, but the way in which we all get information and news now is so different than it used to be, and there's
Right.
so and the way in which people can get just the news that they want, that reinforces what they believe, spoon fed to them through social media or other platforms, just makes it really hard to strike balance. So that's the harder part.
I would say this about the media, in defense of the media. It depends. And see, media is such a broad term
Yeah.
because now we it used to be that you had a certain level of people doing the news and people like me outside of that. And what's happened is we conflated the two. So now people who are giving you information are doing it as if that is the news, as opposed to their opinion based on some theory, based on some cockamamie thing they saw somewhere. And then that's getting put out as actual news. And that's really the problem to me.
It's a great point. Yeah, you're absolutely right.
So, COVID and the city and the pandemic and the budget and this past last month we had our first furlough. How are we doing with the city's finances?
Well, COVID has certainly struck a significant blow. I like to remind people that fiscal sustainability has always been a priority for me and my administration, and we were making real strides. We were projecting a budget surplus going into the end of our last fiscal year, which ended in June. When COVID hit, it blew a significant hole in our revenue. Our two largest revenue sources are sales tax and state aid, and both of those were hit the hardest during the pandemic. So we have had to make contingency spending plans. We have had to cut down on some services, and ultimately our goal was to avoid layoffs. And I'm sorry, and we were able to do that by by focusing on furloughs. So we were able to avoid layoffs, but the majority of our workforce, about 1,500 employees, are going to take 4 furlough days between now and June.
And that just means a day off without pay, essentially, correct?
It does, yeah. Uh, right. So, I don't take it lightly. People are going to have less income because of these days than they would have, and a lot of people, the majority of people in our town, are living paycheck to paycheck. So that is not an insignificant loss. But again, when faced with the unfortunate choice of furloughs versus layoffs, we thought that furloughs spread across the workforce was the most humane way to deal with a really difficult situation.
Um, so COVID has a couple of different branches. Let me start with one of them. You're a parent, right? You got kids that have to do remote learning. How are you guys dealing with that?
We're okay. You might be noticing me peeking around. My laptop's running out of batteries, so that's one of the things that we have to deal with. We got a lot more laptops going at all times, but we're managing like everybody else. My girls are in the city school district. They're doing the hybrid model, so they're home for 3 days of the week and they're in school for two. And I've just been blown away by the teachers and the administrators and how much time and effort they've put into figuring out how to get this right. And we're all just, we're just getting through it and learning as we go. But as a family, we're all together. We're all supporting each other, and we're getting through it.
Do you work remotely or do you go in?
So I'm home now, but I go in. Other than the 14 days I was quarantined, I've gone into work every day during the pandemic. I have the benefit of being able to be in my office alone most of the time, and it's just where I'm most effective. I feel better being on the job, but thankfully, we've all been able to adapt, and I can work remotely.
In our community, we've had upticks now with COVID cases, um, and we've tried to do the right thing. We've done social distancing. We've tried to do the. We've had indoor dining in Syracuse, and we were able to eat outside, but not anymore.
Yeah.
And so, what do you make of the uptick in cases? What's not happening? Who's not doing what? And why aren't we getting the message?
Yeah, it is certainly unnerving. I think there's a combination of factors. It is, as you alluded to, it's getting colder out, so people are indoors. A combination of people are indoors more, and more people um, are active. As we reopen the economy, we have more opportunities for people to gather or be around each other. Um, so you have those factors, and then I think you do have some pandemic fatigue. We've all sacrificed and limited our gathering, or most of us have, anyways, and I think that we've let our guard down a little bit, and um, all we can do is just keep reinforcing the message that we for the time that we did have our guard up and we were doing the right things, it worked. And I think even if we maintain that level as we've been indoors more, as we've been more active, we're going to have to, do even more to protect ourselves. But we know that we know what works: wearing masks, socially distancing, sanitizing, and getting tested work. And so we just need to continue to focus on it. And I think we'll be okay.
We've had an uptick in crime this year. What do you attribute that to?
Well, the
Murders, I
pandemic,
should say, homicides. I'm
well,
specifically mean, yeah.
I didn't want to sound like the politician, George, but overall crime is actually down in the city of Syracuse about eight
Right.
percent year over year. Violent crime is up, and it's not an excuse, but it is up across the country. And there, while I think there'll probably be a lot of analysis done in the coming years about why. I think that it is that the pandemic absolutely has something to do with it. We've seen the way that it has impacted all of our mental health, and mental health is a significant contributor to
Sure.
violence. And we're seeing it manifested in a number of different ways. There are a lot of people struggling with mental health and addiction that we're managing those struggles through support systems that have fallen away during the pandemic. So we've seen a lot more people presenting themselves on the streets, on the street corners, but that's also manifested itself in violence. And it's something that we've been really focused on trying to address, making sure that we're getting the right resources to address those challenges, because in some cases, just calling the police to show up isn't the best option. These are people that need counseling, that need medication, that need other resources. But there are also cases where we do need the police, and in those cases, the police department is working real hard. We just stood up a new uh, um, gun violence suppression detail that is specifically focused on going out on the streets, targeting the areas where we're seeing the most gun violence. So we have adapted our operations in SPD to account for it. But it's we can never allow ourselves to get desensitized to the fact that we have, as of this year, we've lost 27 human lives, 27 neighbors to violence. That can never be acceptable, and it certainly will not be as long as I'm in my position.
And so I got four things in no time. So I'm gonna try to do greatest hits here.
Okay.
Police reform, speaking of which, has certainly been a priority of yours, and has certainly been on the minds of the people. I know that you had put a series of reforms in place, and some of them are starting to come through now. So where are we now on the police reform issues?
So anyone interested in where we stand can go to, we have a web portal focus that gives regular updates on where we are with police reform, where we are with the 16 actions I identified in my police reform executive order that I put out. We've made a lot of progress on policies like our use of force policy, like our body camera policy. We've also put a lot more body cameras out on patrol. When I took office, we had 16 on officers. Today we have 220. So we're making real progress there. But just Google, I can't give you the URL off the top of my head, but if you Google Syracuse police reform, and we also have a link on our homepage, you can see where we are on every point.
Columbus Day, was that a difficult decision? Columbus Circle, and the removal of the Columbus statue. How difficult a decision was that? And there's still certainly people not happy about that,
Yeah,
and there are
it was
people very happy about it too. Same thing.
well, right, and that's the point. Is it's a that statue, that Columbus statue specifically, is a symbol that means very different things to different people. And for some, particularly in the Italian American community, it's a source of Italian American pride and heritage. But for others, particularly in our indigenous communities and Black and Brown communities, not across the board, but for many, it's a symbol of oppression and supremacy. And so ultimately, I came to the conclusion, with a lot of feedback from a lot of people, that we should be able to honor our Italian American community and heritage in a way that is peaceful and that doesn't cause pain and oppression for other parts of our community, which has led me to decide that we need to remove the statue, amend the monument in a way that is still focused on Italian Americans, but then use that space around the circle to create a place of healing where we can tell the broader story of our community and oppression, both as it related to Italian Americans, which is an important part of the story, but as well as it relates to many communities and people today. So, but again, there are many that are upset with the decision, but I've also heard from many that are happy. My goal is to heal everyone in this process.
What's the timetable for removal?
It's we don't have a definitive one yet. We want to move intentionally and swiftly, but we want to get it right. And part of getting it right is engaging many of those communities that have various feelings about it. I want the Italian American community to be involved in reimagining that monument. We have many of Italian Americans that have stepped up that want to be a part of it, but there are others that we need to continue to work with. So I'm hopeful that over the next year you'll see real progress, but it's hard to say exactly when yet.
Will there be a tree lighting ceremony in Hanover Square? Clinton
There will
Square.
in
Clinton
Clinton Square.
Square.
There will indeed, contrary to some reports, we have not canceled Christmas in the city of Syracuse. We are doing a virtual tree lighting ceremony. We will air it the same day that we do the tree lighting every year, the Friday after Thanksgiving. It'll be an hour long. We're partnering with a number of different community partners, and it'll be a lot of fun. Different
So,
but fun.
so people won't be coming to it, but the activities and everything will be there, and then we'll have
Yeah.
the light, and will Santa be there as well?
Santa will be there. Santa was there when I announced it earlier this week. But yeah, we'll have entertainment. We'll have the countdown, but we'll just be watching it like we're talking right now.
And finally, any good news you want us to know about what is happening in the city? This is your little PSA.
Well, thanks, George. What I try to tell myself and tell others is that, given how much of an impact the pandemic has had on all of us, if you go just before that, we had so many good things going for us in the community that we still have going for us. When you look at the metrics that we measure ourselves, poverty was going down, job growth was going up, the graduation rate was going up, vacant properties going down, crime going down, all of the ingredients, not to mention all the investment that we've seen both from local businesses and global corporations like Microsoft, Verizon, Amazon. Some of that has been impacted or slowed because of the pandemic, but all of the ingredients that were contributing to the success that we were seeing as a community are still there. And so we just have to help each other get through this difficult time, and then and get back to work when we can get past the pandemic. But I am still really bullish on the future of the city of Syracuse and the Central New York region, and I hope everybody else is too.
Would you say you have a surge of enthusiasm?
Absolutely, yeah. Syracuse is surging, Syracuse is rising, and we will keep rising.
Mayor Ben Walsh, Inspiration for the Nation. Thank you, Mayor. Appreciate you.
Thanks, George.